Yo, what's poppin', people? It's Dante. This morning I wanted to discuss this idea of street photography being meditation and what that means to me personally. So, over 2 years ago, as I started to photograph with my new process in high contrast black and white, shooting with the Ricoh GR3 or the Ricoh GR3X, I've been entering this meditative state quite naturally through the act of making photographs and walking my city. And I wanted to discuss some ideas about this, share some photos that I made this weekend, and hopefully come back with a better understanding of why I think about photography this way these days. And so I'm sure other people can resonate with this idea. It's very blissful to walk and to simply just be, where we have a past, we have a future, but these things aren't of my concern when I'm in the present moment and recognizing the patterns in nature, whether I'm studying the light or the different ways the river moves and the things that I'm photographing in nature, like leaves or patterns and natural things, or human behavior and the way that people move and the way that people interact on the street and their behavior patterns. And so, let's see, I'm trying to find the photos I made this weekend. Oh, shout out to Ian, the best bus driver from Turkey. Marhaban. Yeah, this guy is so sick. He's the nicest bus driver. And he has these prayer beads on his hand. And as I was chatting with him just last Friday, he was discussing to me how he prays with the prayer beads. And he repeats the word Halim, Halim, Halim over and over again as he's driving the bus in a meditative state. And he was telling me how when he's driving the bus on his route and repeating that same pattern every day, he treats it like meditation. And the prayer of repeating Halim Halim in Arabic, which I believe means like God is patient, God is gentle, something along these lines. He was discussing to me what it does for him mentally. And this was really intriguing because this was something new that I was just learning in the moment through conversation. And he asked me, why do Muslims repeat the same word over and over again through prayer? And I was reminded of my time in Jericho. When I was learning about Islam, I was taught that you get a higher seat in heaven or something. I'm not really sure, in paradise or whatever. I was discussing something much more metaphysical. And he said, no, it's biological. Actually, when you repeat things, you open up these pathways, these neural pathways in your brain through brain plasticity. And this is something that I really don't know about, but I'm going to try to learn more about because I find it interesting and something to tie into the repetitive nature of making photographs. Because when I'm walking and I'm observant and I have this heightened intuition, the click of the shutter and repeating the act of making photos and walking the same mundane route really does become meditative, similar to the repetition of prayer and gratitude and opening neural pathways in your brain this way, which is maybe an interesting way to think about things much more on the biological level than the metaphysical level, because it's something we can all kind of understand and grasp. And so, yeah, I just thought that was really intriguing. Good way to segue into the video. So we're starting off here on a Saturday morning, walking through my town here in Philadelphia, and I'm very observant. I'm very much aware of the human presence, and I photographed these discarded blankets as my first photograph and walked past City Hall and photographing the looming tower there and that beautiful little glimpse of light in the morning. And so I'm observant of the light, I'm observant of the sun, and when I'm walking, as a practical idea and a practical way that I treat street photography like meditation, I'm walking extremely slowly. I walk like a turtle at a turtle's pace. And what that means is the slower I walk, the more that I see. And the more that I see and observe, the more that I photograph. And ultimately, that's my goal. And so by walking slowly, I'm increasing my curiosity and I'm noticing the different glimpses of light. And actually, when I made this photograph, I used the crop mode on the back of my camera on the Wi-Fi button, and I double tapped it from 40 millimeters to 71 millimeters to grab this image of the light. And so when I'm photographing, I'm not looking, I'm not hunting, I'm not trying to make anything great. I'm simply existing and I'm walking and I'm observing the patterns and I'm looking at life and I'm photographing the buildings and the way that it falls. And at the end of the day, I'm simply following the sunlight. I'm treating this thing like a visual diary of my day, just snapshotting my way through life and just letting life flow towards me. And so by going slow, I really do enter this Zen zone. And yeah, I find that by going at a snail's pace and walking with the sunlight, not only is there this very peaceful experience of sort of not thinking and shutting down the mind and existing in the now. But there really is something on the physiological level of the endorphins that are firing on the physiological level, right? Where walking is bliss and the dopamine of pressing the shutter is affirming. And there's something that feels really good and always puts me in a heightened state of bliss. And so for me, walking and photographing as meditation is bliss. And I find it to be extremely peaceful and empowering. And I stopped in the coffee shop quickly to grab an espresso as I head towards the river. And you can see as the light flows in here through the window, I'm photographing at the macro level now, observing the pattern in nature, observing the beautiful leaf, and the very mundane and overlooked things in life become something that I can uplift in a photograph and find meaning in. And so for me, the act of photographing in this meditative state is all about slowing down and being extremely observant of those small details. And so this detail of the leaf looming over the pot was extremely beautiful as I sip my espresso. And so I always make sure to not only photograph people, not only photograph buildings and structures and the light itself, but I also never shy away from the macro. And what the macro feature on my Ricoh provides me is this very liberating way of photographing where I always know that I can get extremely close to things and make interesting photos. And so when I photograph, I'm looking at the light, of course, I'm following the sun. And so this walk that I do, it's not necessarily a walk to go out there and make street photos. I'm not looking for moments, I'm not looking for people or anything specific. I'm actually genuinely just walking this way, and I'm walking this route to catch the sun, because I know the sun will be along the river, and then I can walk for many hours with the sunlight hitting my face, and it feels good. And I can listen to the birds chirping, and I can be at peace by the river where there is no chatter and there really are no people. And so I'm photographing the quiet moments that I find along this walk. And this is my favorite walk, is to simply photograph along the river, photograph along the outskirts of the city where I am alone and I am at peace. And so I'm looking at these small details below my feet. I'm looking at the grand river and the way that it's flowing, and the bridge reflects and the ice is melting. You know, there's so many beautiful things out there in the world that I just want to photograph. And when I shut down my mind, I sort of tap into the subconscious, and I'm snapshotting my way through the city this way by responding through my gut, responding through my intuition. And so one of the practical ways that I approach this meditative state is I do not eat breakfast or lunch, and so throughout the day I'm in a fasted state. And I believe that this increases the connection between my mind and my eyes, or my mind and my gut, where perhaps being fasted gives you this clear connection to your mind so that you can find things intuitively to photograph. And through repetition and through making pictures and walking the same mundane place, you can become hyper aware of the way that light falls, the way that people move, and respond quickly and intuitively to those decisive moments that are fleeting. For instance, this boy here doing a trick on a skateboard as I look out towards the river. And so I come to this location not to photograph these kind of decisive moments like this boy, but I'm there because I enjoy the sun. I enjoy walking this way and looking out towards the river and simply watching the seagulls fly. And so the photographs, they come naturally, they come intuitively. They come through me following my subconscious mind, following my curiosity, and responding to my gut. And my body, my mind, it desires the river. It definitely is something that draws me in each weekend. And I essentially naturally walk this way. And, you know, photographing the patterns in nature, photographing the ice and it's melting, melting away here in the winter. And, you know, reminding myself of the impermanent nature of things and how everything inevitably is in flux and changing. And so I'm walking along the outskirts, not looking for anything, just responding and photographing whatever catches my eye. And I find that the tattered walls and the discarded things become beautiful. And I'm not necessarily trying to make compelling imagery, but just making a sketch and a note of my day. And sometimes even the trash that's left on the side can sometimes be uplifted in a photograph and bring meaning to me and make me smile. And so while the photographs may not mean anything to you, they mean a lot to me. And so I find that when I'm walking and I'm observing the light, I become in a trance, kind of like a meditative trance state that you hear about meditation, but it's not like a weird thing. It's kind of just like, you kind of just like, you just like stand there and you're just looking at the light and you're just like, wow. Like, wow, like life is beautiful, the light is beautiful. And so at this moment when I pressed the shutter, I was actually standing there for 10 minutes watching the reflected light off the building, just watching as people move, watching as the light gradually changes, looking at the way the reflective surface on the left-hand side brings depth to the image I was creating. And then essentially I was waiting for people to pass through this reflected patch of light to capture that moment, but also in relationship to the shadow in the back. And so I didn't leave this location on the corner until the shadow disappeared. I didn't leave until the light left. And then I continued to follow the light. And so I continued my way, walking through the streets, and wound up in the Wanamaker building. Apparently the Wanamaker building will be shutting down sometime in March. And so I was deciding to just go through and just check it out and photographing throughout Center City. And yeah, I love photographing the buildings. In the city we have such beautiful architecture, and I always find myself photographing in a multifaceted way now while I'm walking, because I'm so slow and I'm walking at a pace that allows me to take in all of these details. I don't forget to look up and to watch the way the different shapes form from the light and the way that it casts on the beautiful buildings here in Philadelphia. And actually at this moment when I photographed these dusty dumpsters, there was a protest in the tunnels right behind me, and I walked straight through the protest, not listening, just kind of distracted because I'm so focused on moving. I'm so focused on moving onward that all of the chatter from the protest kind of fades away, and I'm simply there photographing a dusty dumpster instead. I'm not interested in the protest. I'm not interested in the chatter and the noise and the distractions on the streets a lot of the times. I'm sort of just in my own world, and I find that through the act of creating a photograph, you can create a new world through looking at the weird patterns and the different ways that light casts on surfaces. I can uplift those mundane things in a photograph. And so when I'm photographing, I'm asking questions, right? I'm asking questions with each click of the shutter, and I'm just curious what the photograph will manifest to be at the end of the day, where I'm embracing the spirit of play. I'm snapshotting my way through life. I'm looking at the light and the way that it reflects off the windows. And a lot of the times what I see in the moment isn't necessarily what I get in the photograph, but what I get in the photograph is what I didn't see. And so I create this other world through the act of creating a new photograph. And I find that by visiting this cliff here at the back of the Philadelphia Museum of Art, not only do I get to watch the sunset, but I also look out towards a horizon, and I look out towards a beautiful vista, a landscape where we have the river flowing, there's a waterfall, there's a tree canopy, and an open sky. And what this reminds me of is how open the world is, how much there is to do, to see, to explore, and to photograph. And so a lot of the times I enter this cliff with just an open mind, an open heart, and I stand there for a good 10 minutes just to listen to the sounds and to look out and to feel the cold, crisp air on my skin. And I really do enter this meditative state while I'm out there walking and photographing, and it really does bring me joy and bliss. And yeah, I'm just happy to share that thought with you. And so I walk along the trail, I continue walking and follow my way back towards the front of the Philadelphia Museum of Art, where I can look out towards the skyline. And once again, looking down low, looking at details, looking at the vistas, looking at the landscapes, the fleeting moments, the people, but also looking at the sky and finding myself wondering up at the clouds. And, I'm sort of just curious at the end of the day, like a big kid looking up at the clouds, and the things that I see and the things that I photograph reflect that back through the images I make. And at the end of the day, I actually wound up finding a decisive moment here at the top of the art museum steps as the children were playing in this fountain that's empty, covered with snow. And what do you know? I wound up finding an interesting moment on the outskirts of city where they're least expected. And this photograph was the final image of the day, where I made a photograph that describes the playful youth on a winter day here in Philadelphia with the skyline there in the background, City Hall. And yeah, it just ties together the day perfectly with this final snapshot of the child playing in perfect stride. And I think when you really slow down and you're hyper aware and you're hyper observant and you're recognizing the patterns in nature with the light and the way that it falls, and human behavior and the way they move and gesture. Your timing becomes very much intuitive, and with repetition of photographing consistently every day, throughout your day, you will open up perhaps some sort of neural pathway, genuinely, I believe, that will allow you to achieve these photographs through repetition, through slowing down, and through being hyper aware and being in that present moment when you press the shutter. And so there is something to be said about this idea of treating street photography like meditation that I believe can enhance our ability to create photographs on the streets. And so I encourage you to go slow and to just let life flow towards you. With your camera in hand, you'll be there and you'll be prepared to press the shutter. You don't have to go out there on the hunt looking and searching for these decisive moments, but just let them come to you. And so I just wanted to share some photographs from my weekend walk. It's my famous perimeter walk. I love walking the perimeter of the city. It's something I absolutely enjoy. Just brings me bliss, solitude, walking, photography. Yeah, these things are the trifecta in my life and something that brings me joy. So, yeah, I'm sure other people out there like to treat photography this way. It's just a good way to go out there and, just shut down all of the distractions and all of the thoughts that you might have rushing through your head. And yeah, I know that for a fact, if I'm stagnant, if I'm sitting still, if I'm just chilling in my house or something and I'm not outside walking, it can become a bit distracting. There's so many yummy foods you can order, there's so many TV channels and internet videos that you can watch or whatever. Like, you can just be watching YouTube all day and stuff like this and just be like distracted. But when you just go out there and just go for a long walk and just align with the sun and just follow the sun and just allow that sunlight to bask or to come towards you and you just kind of follow it, yeah, you'll find bliss. And just take some pics along the way. All right, so yeah, it's enough talk today. Yeah, stay tuned for more videos. Where's my bus? I've got the little map up. I always try to time it like, when's the bus coming? It'll pop up soon, right over here. Then I'll head out.